The galaxy had forgotten the name of Earth. To most alien civilizations, it was nothing more than a small, blue world on the edge of a dying star system, home to creatures once considered too emotional, too unpredictable, too human. But humans had changed. The wars on their own world had ended, and the long years of silence had shaped them into something cold, focused, and unified. When the signal came, it was not a call for peace. It was a warning. Across the stars, deep in the chambers of the alien council known as the Careth Union, the message played before hundreds of ambassadors and warlords. It was short and direct. To all who seek to harm us, remember this. Humanity forgives slowly, but never forgets. Test us again, and you will see what we have become. For a moment, the grand chamber was silent. Then laughter filled the air. The alien leaders, tall and scaled, with eyes that glowed in the dim light, found the words amusing. To them, humans were still that fragile race that barely survived its own world wars. They saw Earth as a place of weakness, a divided world that relied on ancient technology and fading pride. The supreme warlord of the Careth Union leaned back in his throne and smirked. "Let them bark," he said. "They are still animals pretending to roar." But not everyone in that chamber laughed. One alien scientist, a quiet observer named Thalos, frowned as he rewatched the signal. He noticed something the others ignored: the background of the transmission. Behind the human spokesman, dozens of massive ships floated in low orbit, their hulls dark and silent. Thalos recognized one of the ship designs and a model that should not have existed. It was a warship of impossible scale. "They are building something," Thalos whispered. His warning went unheard. Back on Earth, the planet glowed with movement. Massive shipyards on Mars were alive with fire and light. Construction drones worked day and night, forming the skeletons of new starships. The united human fleet, once a dream buried in politics, had become reality. Nations had set aside old flags to unite under one emblem: the dominion of humanity. At the heart of this rebirth stood Captain Arik Vale, a man who had seen too much loss to believe in peace anymore. He had fought in the last human war, a conflict that had taught him the cost of mercy. Now he commanded the Horizon, the largest vessel ever built by human hands. From his command bridge, Vale stared at the quiet stars beyond Mars. "Do you think they'll listen this time?" his second officer asked. Vale's jaw tightened. "No," he said. "They never do." Far beyond, alien probes entered the Sol system. They scanned Earth's orbit, sending data back to their masters. The readings were strange. They detected strange power signatures, reactors stronger than anything the aliens had seen before. But before the probes could send a full report, they vanished into static. Still, the alien council did not take the hint. They considered it a bluff, a scare tactic. The supreme warlord even ordered a fleet toward the human border, not to attack, but to remind the apes of their place. When Captain Vale received the report of approaching alien fleets, he remained calm. "Prepare a response," he said. His officers looked at him. "A message, sir?" Vale nodded slowly. "No, a demonstration." Days later, the first human ships moved beyond Pluto. They traveled silently, using new engines powered by quantum cores. When the alien scouts detected them, it was already too late. The human ships didn't broadcast identification codes. They didn't open communication channels. They moved like shadows, weapons hot, engines cold. At first, the aliens thought it was a joke. "Primitive humans cannot even cross their own system," one commander sneered. But when his radar filled with hundreds of signals, all closing in fast, his confidence faded. The human ships surrounded them, and their commander's voice came through the static. "You ignored our warning. This is your only lesson." Then light consumed the darkness. The alien fleet never returned. Only fragments of their ships were later found drifting near the edge of the system. The galaxy took notice. Suddenly, the laughter began to fade. Back on Earth, Captain Vale stood before his crew in silence. "They will come again," he said. "And next time, they will not laugh." For the first time in centuries, humanity no longer looked small. They had survived every disaster their own world threw at them: war, plague, greed, and chaos. Now, united under a single purpose, they turned their eyes toward the stars, ready to defend their place in the galaxy. As the Horizon prepared for deep space deployment, Vale looked once more at Earth below, blue and fragile yet defiant. "We warned them," he whispered. "Now whatever comes, we will answer." The engines of the horizon flared to life, cutting through the dark. Around it, dozens of ships followed like wolves rising from the shadows. Humanity's warning had been given. The silence that followed was not peace, it was the calm before retribution. The aliens had laughed. But they would not laugh for long. The silence after the first human strike echoed across the stars. Alien networks filled with confusion and fear. The Carith Union, once so proud, now searched for answers. Their ships had vanished near the edge of the Sol system without a single distress call. Only fragments of metal and burnt remains floated in empty space. No survivors, no signals. At first, the Council refused to believe it was humanity's doing. It must be a natural disaster, said one of the generals. Another suggested a black hole or a failed experiment. But deep inside, they all knew. Humanity had warned them, and now, the warning had become action. In the shadows of space, Earth's ships were on the move. The Horizon, flagship of the Dominion fleet, led the formation. Captain Arik Vale stood at the center of the bridge, silent as the stars. Around him, his crew worked with calm precision. No one celebrated the last battle. No one smiled. They all knew this was only the beginning. "Sir, the alien fleet is gathering near Proxima Centauri," said Lieutenant Mara. 38 warships, heavily armed. Vale's expression did not change. "Do we have civilian colonies there?" "Yes, sir," Mara replied. 20,000 people, families. Vale turned his gaze to the holographic map. Red lights blinked around the colony, forming a ring of danger. "Then we are already too late," he murmured. On the alien command ship near Proxima, Admiral Zurek of the Carith Union watched his monitors. He had no fear of humans. He believed in the old stories that humans were weak, emotional, uncoordinated. His fleet prepared to attack the colony, to make an example of them. He wanted to show the galaxy that no primitive species could threaten the Union. But as his ships closed in, something unusual appeared on his sensors. Faint signals, small dots moving fast. At first, his officers thought they were asteroids. Then suddenly, the dots changed direction, heading straight for them. "Unknown vessels detected," shouted his aide. "Identify!" Zurek barked. Before anyone could answer, the space outside lit up. From the darkness, sleek human ships emerged. They had no insignia, no signal beacons, no hesitation. They came from behind asteroids, from the shadows of dead moons, from places no one expected. The first human missile hit a Carith ship so fast the crew never had time to scream. The explosion rippled through space like thunder. Zurek's ship shook violently. "Return fire!" he shouted. Energy bolts flashed across the void, but the humans were already gone, moving faster than alien weapons could track. They struck again and again like ghosts. One by one, the Carith ships fell apart. Inside the Horizon, Captain Vale watched the battle unfold on his main screen. "They wanted a reminder," he said softly. "Let them have it." His voice was calm, but his eyes carried the weight of countless lost years. Years when humanity had been treated as prey. Mara looked at him. "Sir, they're trying to retreat." Vale's jaw tightened. "No survivors," he said. His order was carried through every ship in the fleet. The humans moved as one, precise, silent, merciless. Within 20 minutes, the battle was over. Not a single alien vessel remained. When the smoke cleared, the Horizon drifted among the wreckage. Debris floated like shattered bones of a forgotten empire. Vale turned to his communications officer. "Send a transmission." "Yes, sir." "To who?" "Everyone," Vale said. "Every frequency they can hear." A moment later, his voice echoed across the stars. "This is Captain Arik Vale of the Human Dominion. You ignored our warning. You called us primitive. You thought our words were empty. Now you have your answer. We are done being hunted. We are done being mocked. If you threaten humanity again, there will be no mercy." The message spread fast. It reached every listening post, every trading ship, every planet that had ever looked down on Earth. In a single day, humanity's name became a storm that no one could escape. On distant worlds, alien civilians whispered in fear. Children asked their parents if humans were real. Soldiers who once laughed at human weakness began to question everything. Even the great Carith Union, the proud rulers of half the galaxy, felt the tremble of fear in their bones. Back on Earth, cities watched the broadcast replay in silence. For the first time in centuries, every nation stood together under one voice. They knew this was not the end of war, but the beginning of something far greater. In the command chamber of the horizon, Vale walked to the observation window. The stars stretched endlessly before him, beautiful, cold, and infinite. Do you think they'll fight back? Mara asked quietly. Vale nodded. Yes, fear always makes them fight harder. But now, he looked at the stars again, his reflection merging with the galaxy outside. Now they know what we are capable of. He thought of his brother, lost years ago during an alien raid on a human colony. Every battle, every mission was a reminder of that pain. He had warned them once, hoping for peace. Now peace was no longer his goal. Prepare the fleet, he ordered. Next target, Delta Archon base. They used to call it a fortress. Mara hesitated. Sir, that base is surrounded by neutral systems. Not for long, Vale said. As the human ships began to move again, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Stars reflected off their hulls like the eyes of silent watchers. The galaxy had woken something it did not understand. And deep within the darkness, humanity advanced. No longer the frightened species of old, but a force reborn in fire and vengeance. The warning was over. Now came the retaliation. The galaxy burned with whispers. Everywhere the same story spread. Humans had struck back. Entire fleets had vanished in minutes, their remains floating like dust among the stars. No one knew how humanity had done it. No one could explain their weapons or their precision. But everyone knew one thing. The warning was real. In the months that followed, the skies over 100 worlds turned red. Humanity's fleets appeared and disappeared like ghosts, hitting targets with deadly accuracy and then fading back into the dark. Trade routes were disrupted. Colonies were silenced. Even the mighty Carith Union began to fracture under the weight of fear. In his command ship Horizon, Captain Arik Vale stood over a holographic projection of the galaxy. Red lights marked the systems already hit. Blue lights marked those still untouched. There were fewer blue lights now. His second officer, Mara, looked uneasy. Sir, we've hit 6 Union strongholds in less than a month. Supply lines are stretching thin. Vale did not look up. We adapt. We always have. But at this rate, Mara continued, we'll turn half the galaxy into ruins. They'll call us monsters. Vale finally turned his gaze toward her. His voice was calm, but it carried something sharp beneath the surface. Do you think they cared when they burned our colonies? When they laughed as they slaughtered unarmed settlers on Proxima? Mercy is a luxury they taught us to forget. Mara fell silent. She knew his words were true. The aliens had never shown compassion to humanity, only cruelty. What they faced now was not vengeance, it was consequence. Across the galaxy, alien leaders held frantic meetings. Empires that once ruled with arrogance now begged for peace. But no human response ever came. Messages vanished into static. Ambassadors were ignored. Only silence, and then soon after fire. They began calling Captain Vale by a new name, the Ghost Admiral. Stories spread through alien networks about his ship appearing out of nowhere, striking entire fleets before vanishing like mist. No one ever saw the horizon until it was too late. Some even claimed the ship was invisible, guided by the souls of fallen humans. Others said Vale had made a deal with death itself. In truth, it was simpler. Humanity had evolved faster than anyone imagined. Their technology was new, but their resolve was ancient. Every battle was personal, every strike deliberate. One night aboard the Horizon, Vale stood alone in his quarters. He stared at an old photo, his brother smiling, a soldier's uniform worn with pride. That brother had died when aliens attacked the Europa colonies, years before the warning was ever sent. Vale had sworn then that no human would ever die forgotten again. He touched the photo gently and whispered, "We're not done yet." Suddenly the intercom buzzed. "Admiral, priority message from the fleet. We've located the Carith Prime shipyards." Vale's eyes narrowed. Those shipyards were the pride of the alien empire, the heart of their military might. "Set a course," he ordered, "and tell every captain we make history tonight." Hours later, humanity's armada emerged from warp space. Before them hung the Carith shipyards, massive rings of steel orbiting a burning red sun. Thousands of alien workers froze as alarms screamed. "Do we hail them?" Mara asked quietly. "No," Vale said. They had their chance. The human ships opened fire. Missiles streaked across the void like falling stars. Energy beams cut through alien defenses. One by one, the great shipyards exploded, turning into molten debris. The shockwave reached nearby planets, painting the horizon crimson. On Careth's homeworld, Leaders watched in horror as their empire's symbol of power was erased in less than an hour. Vale watched the destruction from his bridge without emotion. Around him the crew sat in silence. They had just crippled an entire civilization, but there was no celebration, only a heavy stillness. When the final explosion faded, Mara broke the silence. "Sir, we've done it." "The Union is broken." Vale's eyes remained on the screen. "No, not yet. The leaders still breathe. As long as they live, this war continues." Reports came in from across the galaxy. Entire fleets surrendered without a fight. Some alien commanders even turned on their own leaders, hoping to earn mercy, but humanity showed none. On one captured transmission, a frightened alien officer pleaded, "Why are you doing this?" "We made mistakes, yes, but you could have stopped after the first battle." Vale's answer was cold and simple. "Because you didn't stop when we begged you to." Weeks turned into months. The war consumed everything. Planets that had once stood as centers of trade became graveyards. Even neutral species avoided contact with either side. The galaxy had never seen a campaign so swift or so merciless. Yet behind humanity's growing legend, a question began to rise. How far was too far? In one destroyed system, Vale's ships found no enemy fleet, only civilians. A Kareth colony filled with families, unarmed, terrified. When the targeting orders came, Mara hesitated. "Sir, these are non-combatants." Vale's voice was flat. "Every one of them helped build their empire's weapons. Every one of them laughed when we begged for peace." He gave the order. Moments later, the colony was ash and silence. Mara stood still, her heart heavy. The bridge was quiet. Even the hum of the ship felt colder. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled. "At what point do we become what we hate?" Vale did not answer. He stared out into the endless darkness beyond the glass, where distant stars flickered like dying embers. The war across the stars had changed everything. Humanity had become the very storm they once feared. As the horizon drifted through the remains of another conquered world, Vale finally whispered to himself, "They will remember us now." And they would. Every corner of the galaxy would remember the humans who rose from a small blue planet and turned vengeance into legend. But legends, as the galaxy was learning, always came with a price. The galaxy had fallen quiet. The once mighty Kareth Union was nothing more than scattered dust across dead systems. Their worlds burned like fading embers, and their people ran like shadows between the stars. The war had ended for everyone, except humanity. Captain Auric Vale, known now as the Ghost Admiral, stood on the bridge of the horizon. Around him the air felt heavy, almost sacred. The stars outside no longer looked beautiful to him. They were reminders, silent witnesses to every act of revenge he had unleashed. "Report," he said softly. "Sir," Lieutenant Mara replied, "the last Kareth warlords have fled toward the Black Expanse. It's an uncharted region. Radiation storms, unstable wormholes. It's a graveyard out there." Vale turned slowly. "Then that's where we'll go." The crew exchanged glances. No one questioned him anymore. They knew once he gave an order, it became destiny. The horizon and its fleet moved through the void like hunters chasing ghosts. Systems passed in silence. On every abandoned world they found evidence of desperation. Burned ships, crashed escape pods, messages carved into stone walls begging for mercy. But mercy was a word long erased from Vale's heart. In one ruined colony, Mara found a recording left by a dying alien. The voice was weak, trembling. "We should have listened," it said. "We thought they were weak. We thought they were like us." Mara looked at Vale. "Sir, this was a civilian world. No weapons, no ships. They were running from us." Vale's face remained unreadable. "Running from justice," he said. "But they're gone now," she whispered. "There's no one left to fight." Vale turned away from her. "That is not the point." Outside the ship, the stars thinned as they entered the Black Expanse, a dark region filled with dying suns and drifting wrecks. The last remnants of the Kareth hid there, building fortresses from scavenged metal, trying to survive one more day. They prayed to gods who no longer listened. When the humans arrived, the skies above those dying worlds turned white with light. "Sir," an officer said, "they're trying to surrender." Vale's reply was quiet but final. "No one escapes." Human ships descended like a storm. They did not fire in rage, but with precision. Each strike calculated, each detonation clean. Within hours, the last alien fortress was gone. What remained was silence. No voices, no transmissions, no life. As the wreckage drifted through the void, the human fleet hovered motionless. They had achieved what no species ever had, complete victory. But on the horizon, victory tasted like ash. Mara stood beside Vale. "It's over," she said softly. "You've done what you promised. Humanity is safe. The galaxy will never touch us again." Vale's eyes stayed on the view ahead. "Safe," he repeated. "No. Just feared." He walked slowly toward the window, his reflection merging with the cold stars. "Fear keeps peace longer than love ever did," he said. "That is the truth of the universe." Mara hesitated. "And what happens when the fear fades?" Vale looked at her, and for the first time in years she saw exhaustion behind his eyes. "Then we remind them again." The Horizon's engines powered down. The fleet entered silent orbit above a dead world, once the heart of the Kareth Empire. Below them, cities lay buried in ash. Vale ordered a single transmission sent across the galaxy. It carried on every frequency, reaching every civilization, friend, enemy, or neutral. His voice, calm and cold, spoke words that would be remembered for centuries. "This is Captain Arik Vale of the Human Dominion. The Kareth are no more. Let this silence be our final warning. We came in peace once. We offered friendship. You answered with fire. Now you see what your fire has created. Do not come for us again." The message ended. For a long time there was no reply. Then one by one, alien worlds shut down their war channels, turned off their beacons, and began rebuilding in fear. The age of humanity had begun. But even as peace returned, something hollow remained inside Vale. He stood alone in his quarters, surrounded by the faint hum of the ship. On the table before him lay his brother's photo, cracked and faded. He touched it gently. "I did it," he whispered, "but I don't know if you'd be proud." Outside, the stars stretched endless and cold. The galaxy, once filled with countless voices, now seemed empty. Humanity's fleets returned home, victorious but changed. The people of Earth cheered their heroes, but the soldiers who had seen what true vengeance looked like did not smile. They had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Years passed. Stories of the Ghost Admiral turned into legends, and legends turned into warnings. Alien children grew up hearing tales of the humans who came from a blue world and chased gods through the stars. No one dared to challenge them again. On the last day of his command, Captain Arik Vale stood on the observation deck of the Horizon. The ship was old now, its hull scarred, its engines dim. The galaxy had gone quiet once more. "Sir," Mara said, now a commander herself, "we've been ordered to return to Earth for retirement. They want you home." Vale smiled faintly, though it did not reach his eyes. "Home?" he repeated softly. "After all this time, I wonder if it still feels like one." He turned to her one last time. "Mara, remember this, peace is not given. It is kept." Then he walked to the viewing window and stared at the blue planet glowing in the distance, small but unbroken. The man who had ended empires watched his world rise like dawn. He closed his eyes and whispered words no one else could hear. "If they ever laugh again, we will be ready." And as the horizon drifted silently toward Earth, the stars around it seemed to dim in respect. The galaxy would not forget the day humanity chased its enemies without mercy. It would not forget the Ghost Admiral who taught the universe one final truth: humanity never forgives.